What's up, guys? Coming at you from the Siegel Center. This is On the Horn. I'm Zach Joachim. VCU moved to 3-0 tonight with a 63-42 win over Merrimack. We just got out of press availability. Spoke to Joe Bamacil, Philip Russell, and Brandon Jennings after this win, in addition to Coach Odom. Merrimack, 22 turnovers, only 42 points, 1 of 19 from three-point range, 12 of 43 from the field. Great defensive performance from VCU. Held BC to 55 points on Friday. I think this is a team that's really figured out its identity defensively. Not that they were really bad in that first game against Bellarmine, right? But they filled it up offensively, and that was the headline. In the opener and then in these last couple of games, they've been outstanding defensively. And Philip Russell and Brandon Jennings have been the ones who've led that effort. Brandon Jennings didn't have a field goal tonight. The freshman and St. Christopher's alum, the 2024 All-Metro Player of the Year, continues to impact the game with intangibles, with his defense, with his rebounding. Game-high 4 steals tonight for Brandon. How many rebounds did he have? 9 rebounds tonight. Didn't have a field goal, but 5 of 6 at the free throw line. He was the first sub off the bench in this game, and it says something that the true freshman has been at the podium for media availability for 2 consecutive games now. He has obviously earned Coach Odom's trust very fast. He played 26-22. The amount that he's playing, obviously Zeb Jackson's injury is a big factor in that, but he has really stepped in and played some major minutes here in these first few games with aplomb. Does all of the little things to help this team win. And so, but it wasn't just him tonight, right? Philip Russell's defense was great on the ball. He had 1 steal. Max Scholga, 4 steals. There was some discussion in the media room about, are we worried about Max? He didn't have a field goal tonight. Only had 4 points. But he had 4 steals. He had 4 assists. He had 5 rebounds. 19 over plus minus. I mean, he was flying all over the place, diving on the floor. You see the intensity from him. You see the rebounding defense. His stamina, they were obviously all focuses for him in the offseason. And he just hasn't had to fill it up offensively for this team like he did last year after having to really carry VCU on that end of the floor for much of last season. Joe Bamacil, game-high 20 points, 8 of 11 from the field, really efficient for him. Philip Russell, 18 points. I think those two have led VCU in scoring every game so far this year. It seems like that duo really has a strong chemistry. I've talked about this before, but I love the quote from Joe early on in the season saying that Phil brings a little bit of spice to this team that we didn't have last year, that this team didn't have last year. There was a moment down here on this sideline right here in the second half when Brandon jumped a passing lane, got a deflection, deflected it off of a Merrimack player, and got the turnover. And Phil walked up to him and was just kind of jawing at his face and hyping him up and gave him a chest bump. We asked them about that after the game, and they said they have at least one of those moments in practice every day when they're together. It seems like there's a really good chemistry between those two. It seems like Phil really admires Brandon's intensity on the defensive end as a young player, and I think Brandon obviously looks up to Phil in his mentality and how he plays the game. It's obvious that Coach Odom everyone in this program has gained a lot of respect for both of those newcomers early on this year. Brandon, a freshman, and Phil, a graduate transfer. Phil and Joe are really comfortable offensively. Nobody else really had a good game offensively. I mean, it wasn't pretty, and Coach Odom talked about that. You know, the VCU sleptwalked through the second half a little bit, right? It was 25-25 in the second half after VCU led 38-17 at halftime, but you win by 21 points, and so when you've got that kind of a margin, it's difficult not to get complacent. I think, shout out to Chris from the Black and Gold fan podcast for pointing this out to me in the media room. Coach Odom slammed a clipboard there late in the second half, and Jay Wall, the trainer, was checking out his hand a little bit, which I believe was bleeding a little bit, and so Coach Odom got mad. I mean, this team certainly got complacent there in that second half, right? Again, with that sort of margin and with how much Merrimack was struggling offensively, honestly. Adam Clark, tip of the cap to that guy, 7 of 16 from the field, continually was able to drive the lane and hit tough mid-range jumpers. He's got great handles. He was in his bag tonight. He's tough to guard. Brandon did a great job, spent a lot of time on him. Phil also spent a lot of time on him, but he ended up with 19 points in 38:05. He barely came out of this game, so tip of the cap to him. He's a gamer. He was fun to watch tonight. And then Sean Trumper got to the line 13 times and made 10 of them. And really those two things, Clark's creativity and ability to score off the dribble and in the mid-range, and then Trumper getting to the line was all of Merrimack's offense tonight. Trumper had 16, Clark had 19, and that was it. Savage is the guy who hit the number 5, who hit the 1-3 for them early on. They finished 1 of 19 from the three-point line. I think aggressiveness with closing out to the three-point line is something that has stood out to me in the last couple games for this team defensively against Boston College. And against Merrimack. Bellarmine did not take a lot of threes, but still, I think they hit more than either BC or Merrimack did. I forget off the top of my head what the total for that game was, but Bellarmine clearly the team that posted the best offensive showing against VCU so far this year, and I think after that first game, they looked at that film and they took a lot from that film of the Bellarmine game early on, because this team has been outstanding defensively in these last couple of games. I think closing out aggressively to three-point shooters has been a big part of that, because they're not allowing open threes. They're running teams off the three-point line really well. They're also creating turnovers. Like I said, Merrimack 22 turnovers tonight. They were not clean offensively. VCU was diving on the floor. VCU was jumping passing lanes. Brandon and Phil, again, really led that mentality. Christian Furman, I want to talk about a little bit, because he was 1 of 6 from the floor, 3 rebounds, 1 block. So he did not do a whole lot in the stat sheet, but he's 21 over on the plus-minus. And the reason for that is his rim protecting presence. Even though he only had the 1 block, he deserves more than that tonight, because there was a stretch there in the second half where Odom went to that true 4 guards around one big small lineup, and Jack Clark was the only forward on the floor, and they didn't have Firm out there. And Luke Bamboye as well, I think I should mention. He had 3 blocks tonight. He only played 9:52 and had 3 blocks. So those 2 guys, I think that it changed the game when either one of them was on the floor, because Merrimack could not penetrate at all. And when you're not hitting from outside, and when you can't penetrate, I think someone's calling my name. Rodney, stay well, my friend. See you in Charleston? Or I'll see you tomorrow night. Will you be at B-Dubs?
Actually, tomorrow night I'm doing mock interviews here.
Okay, awesome. I'll see you in Charleston. Good night, my friend. That was Rodney Ashby, who's walking out, VCU legend and play-by-play announcer. He's awesome. We love Rodney. I'm going to see them in Charleston next week, which I'm very excited for, which I'll talk about here in a second. The matchup's coming up. But just to close the door on this one, 63-42, great defensive showing from VCU. If there are concerns from this game, then it's the complacency in the second half, because they obviously sleptwalked through it a little bit when you were up 20, and Merrimack could not get anything going offensively and just never really threatened to close that deficit. And Max Scholga, it is a little concerning, 0 of 5 from the field. Would like to see him get it going offensively soon, but I don't see anything wrong with him. I think he's healthy compared to last year when he was not for much of the season, and he still had to carry this team offensively. I think he's just kind of relishing the fact that he's got other guys who can fill it up right now, and he's letting Phil and Joe cook. And so that's a good thing for this team, that Max doesn't have to do it all offensively like he did for stretches last year. Jack Clark fouled out tonight, kind of a frustrating night for him. I mean, he still had 5 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. That's a pretty good stat line, but he got unlucky, I think, with a few ticky-tack calls there and ended up fouling out. And you could see he kind of put his hands over his head and was very exasperated after that last call, because it was a few tough calls that he got tonight. So he was never really able to get into the flow of the game. Michael Bell, Coach Odom said an arm injury of some sort in the post-game press conference. He hasn't talked to the trainer yet, so they're not sure on specifics. But Michael Bell left in that first half. He only played 8:53, and he was not available for the second half. Coach Odom said it didn't appear to be anything major, but you'd really hope that he's not going to miss any extended time. You'd certainly hope that he's available for Charleston next week, where VCU is going to play 3 games in 4 days, which is a huge opportunity for them to build the resume here a little bit. Fats Billups played 13:57. That was his largest minutes total of the season. It was clear in that second half with VCU update that Coach Odom wanted to give him an opportunity to get going a little bit. He didn't really. He was -5 on the plus-minus, 3 rebounds, 4 points, a steal, 0 of 4 from 3. But there was 2 cool moments in that second half. We got our first ever Brandon Jennings to Fats Billups connections. One of them, Brandon drove here, past the guard on the perimeter, was able to get past the top of that zone, got into that space that VCU was so good at exploiting tonight, that with Merrimack's extended 2-3 zone, you have to be able to make entry passes into the mid-range area in order, because their big was just staying glued to the basket, and then you've got 4 guys on the outside who are extended out to the three-point line, and so everyone knows where the space is there, obviously, right? And you have to make those entry passes, and you have to be able to dribble penetrate in order to draw help and get that zone out of its form. Brandon did a great job of that tonight. He did it on that instance. Fats cut baseline from the corner, and Brandon found him with a bounce pass, and Fats finished with a dunk. So that was very cool to see the St. Christopher's alum and the Verina alum connect. And there was another one. That was the last basket of the game. They had a really similar play that they connected on. Brandon had the assist, and Fats had the finish. So very cool hometown connection there between the two of them. Terrence Hill, 3 points in only 8:08 of action. He continues to look really good offensively. To me, only 1 of 2 from the floor. He hit a 3 on that left wing. Really like what I've seen from him. He has a really high offensive ceiling in the limited minutes that he's got so far here. We want more Luke Bamboye, I think, is the one that kind of the tertiary pieces that stands out to me tonight. 3 blocks. He had a couple of free throws. That stroke from the free throw line looked really good. So 3 rebounds, 2 points, a turnover, and 3 blocks, 5 over on the plus minus from him. So I like what I saw from him in limited action tonight. I think he's kind of growing into things here, and that's